You ever see two people so opposite you'd never think they belonged in the same story? That was Simmons and Agnetha Faltskog. One was fire and face paint, rock's ultimate showman, the man behind the bass and the bravado of Kiss. The other, a Swedish pop goddess wrapped in velvet harmonies, cool, composed, and glowing under stage lights that shimmered like her voice. They were opposites in every way: chaos and calm, excess and elegance, leather and lace. But in the glitter-drenched anything-goes world of the 1970s music scene, sometimes even the most unlikely paths crossed. And Gene, he didn't just notice Agnetha, he couldn't stop thinking about her. This was the golden age. ABBA ruled the airwaves. Precision-crafted melodies, choreographed perfection, and emotional lyrics wrapped in beauty and poise. They were Europe's crown jewel, global, glamorous, untouchable. Kiss? They ruled the arenas. America's rock monsters, explosions, pyro, blood, tongue, volume set to 11. One band brought sing-alongs to the living room. The other brought fire to the stadium. Two bands, two empires, seemingly a universe apart. But behind the stages and the headlines, Simmons, the man with the most recognizable makeup in music, found himself captivated by something he didn't expect. Agnetha wasn't like anyone he'd ever met in the business. She didn't chase the crowd. She didn't scream for the spotlight. She let her voice do all the talking, and it spoke in a language of ache, control, and beauty. She was quiet, not shy, intentional. Her presence didn't demand the room, it lifted it. While Gene played to crowds of 80,000 screaming fans with flames erupting behind him, Agnetha sang with her feet rooted and her voice floating, as if every lyric was a letter she never got to send. To him, she wasn't just beautiful. She was the opposite of everything he knew. And maybe that's why he couldn't look away. In interviews, Gene would later admit, it wasn't a crush, it wasn't a fling, it was respect, a kind he rarely gave, because what she had couldn't be faked, and it couldn't be chased. Then came London, 1977, a high-profile industry gala, chandeliers, silver trays, whispered deals behind closed doors. Everyone who was anyone was there. ABBA had just wrapped another string of #1 singles. One hit, Kiss was in full armor, selling out stadiums. Gene spotted her across the room. That unmistakable profile, golden hair catching the light, posture poised like she'd just stepped off stage. And for once, Simmons, the man who never hesitated, felt something rare. A flicker of nervousness. But he shook it off, rock star swagger engaged. He crossed the room. He came in smooth, the grin, the voice, the compliments just sharp enough to cut through champagne chatter. He told her she was stunning, that her voice had real magic, that he respected her artistry. And she smiled, software polite, gracious. But her eyes, calm, unmoved. She thanked him kindly, held the line of conversation just long enough to be respectful, then turned her attention elsewhere. It wasn't rejection, it wasn't insult, it was boundaries. See, to Agnetha, this wasn't some movie moment. It wasn't a chance encounter with a rock god. It was another handshake at another event in another city far from home. Because her heart wasn't in that room. It was back in Sweden, with her children, her bandmates, her music. She wasn't trying to be mysterious. She was mysterious because she didn't need the noise. And that stunned Gene more than anything. He'd built a career on spectacle, fire, makeup, screaming fans hanging on his every word. But in front of this woman, all that armor didn't mean a thing. She didn't blink. She didn't chase. She didn't need to. That night, it ended quickly. Just a brief conversation. A memory. But to Gene, it never really ended. Years later, he'd still mention her in interviews. That voice, that stillness, that power without noise. Because Agnetha wasn't another name in a long list of encounters. She was the one who didn't fall under the spell, the one who made him stop and wonder. Not, why didn't she want me? But, how does she stay that free? And for Agnetha, she probably forgot the moment by morning. Not because it didn't matter, but because it didn't need to. She had other priorities. Music crafted with care. Family she loved deeply. and a quietness she protected like gold. That one moment between them, fleeting, silent, respectful, became a footnote in both of their stories. But it said something powerful. Sometimes connection isn't about the spark. Sometimes it's about the contrast. One man who lived loud, and one woman who lived true. A rock god who met a woman he couldn't impress, and ended up admiring her even more for it. She didn't bend. She didn't burn. She remained. And in a world that often rewards noise, she showed that silence can echo even louder.